Hello friends. From the very beginning, the 122 horsepower 1.4 TSI acted as the base unit. This is a simplified version that only uses turbocharging. Although this modification is considered more reliable than the option with a turbine and a mechanical compressor, it is not worthy of recommendations. This variation does not have the proper power reserve. The stronger, turbocharged, mechanically supercharged Roots type variant is much livelier, but also not worth the effort. And the point is not at all in the compressor, but in the pump with an electromagnetic clutch. In practice, it often starts to flow or loses performance. For comparison, a water cooling pump for a 122 horsepower version of the engine costs 10 times cheaper. Of particular concern are timing chain problems that are found en masse in small Volkswagen models with exactly the same engine, for example in the Golf. In Passats with a 1.4 TSI, there are cases of chain stretching and even jumping several links, but nothing is known about serious consequences. As a rule, buyer's choice is focused on more powerful petrol versions of the Passat, 1.8 TSI and 2.0 TSI. Both units are representatives of the third generation of engines of the EA888 series. In technical terms, these are quite complex motors. Unfortunately, they are not without their drawbacks. Earlier copies are prone to high oil consumption, up to 1 liter per 1,000 kilometers. The reason is the design of the rings. The disease manifested itself after 50 to 100,000 kilometers. Since February of 2012, the manufacturer began to install thicker rings, which required changes in the piston design. It was possible to almost completely get rid of the disease, although in some fresh copies the problem was still observed. The EA888 timing chain drive often has a shorter service life than a belt drive. Until 2011, the replacement of the timing drive was sometimes required already at 60,000 kilometers. In 2013, the B7 began to be equipped with a more reliable modified timing drive. The condition of the timing chain and the output of the tensioner rod can be checked through a special window. In the case of the 1.4 TSI, this can only be done by removing the timing cover. For 1.8 TSI and 2.0 TSI engines, the manufacturer prescribes the replacement of spark plugs at least once every 100,000 kilometers. It is better to reduce the interval to 50 to 60,000 kilometers. Due to contamination of the electrode, the likelihood of voltage surges increases. This leads to the failure of the ignition coil, which is located directly on the candle. Fortunately, the electronics recognizes which cylinder has the wrong combustion and immediately turns off the corresponding nozzle. This prevents the destruction of the catalyst due to increased thermal load. Many owners note the unstable operation of the 1.8 TSI at idle. The disease is most often observed after 50,000 kilometers of run. No magic pill has been found. For some, it helps to change the place of refueling, and for some, the replacement of injectors or ignition coils. After 50 to 100,000 kilometers, the fuel pump control unit can also fail. The engine stalls and does not start. In the arsenal of the model, they retained the old 6-cylinder 3.6 FSI, which develops 300 horsepower. With such an engine, the Volkswagen Passat turns into a rocket, which can only be kept on the road with the help of the mandatory 4-motion all-wheel drive system. However, you have to pay for the excellent dynamics with high maintenance costs and fuel consumption in the region of 12 to 13 liters per 100 kilometers. The VW Passat B7 was also equipped with diesel engines. The smaller one had a volume of 1.6 liters and the larger one 2.0 liters. The latter existed in 3 versions. The CFFB variant offered 140 horsepower and the CFGB 170 horsepower. Later came the 177 horsepower CFGC. All of them differed in the injection system. The younger one used Siemens injectors, and the 2-liter used Bosch. The resource of piezoelectric injectors directly depends on the quality of the fuel. As for the 140 horsepower 2.0 TDI, the manufacturer has finally got rid of the annoying kick when boost pressure increases. The 1.6 TDI and 2.0 TDI have the same exhaust gas recirculation system, EGR. Sometimes the German abbreviation AGR is used. It consists of a radiator and a pair of valves. The one that allows exhaust gases to enter the cooler is pneumatically controlled. The second, the main one, which sends exhaust gases to the intake, has an electric drive. Problems are only with the electric drive of the main damper. It wedges, which leads to failure of the stepper electric motor for controlling the damper. Both diesel engines comply with Euro 5 emission standards, which means they cannot do without a particulate filter. It is integral with the catalytic converter. Ultimately, the diesel engines of the Volkswagen Passat B7 bring fewer problems than in the B6. Unlike gasoline counterparts with a timing chain drive, diesel engines use a toothed belt. Despite the claimed timing belt resource of 180,000 kilometers, it should be changed at a range of 90 to 120,000 kilometers. The Passat B7 was equipped with a 6-speed manual transmission and a robotic DSG, 7 and 6-speed. The DSG-6 was paired only with a 2.0 TSI and 2.0 TDI engine. There are practically no claims to it. The DSG-7 was not without surprises. Complaints appeared after 40 to 100,000 kilometers. Most often the clutch was changed. There were vibrations and jerks. If you pull with the replacement of the clutch, then the mechatronics could also fail. The replacement was carried out under the warranty, which was 5 years or 150,000 kilometers. The manufacturer upgraded the clutch at the end of 2013 and announced that as of January 1st, 2014, the clutch warranty is only 2 years. In practice, after installing the upgraded clutch, there were really fewer calls to the service. During the transition from generation B6 to B7, the suspension has also undergone a certain modernization. It has become more durable. If earlier lower arms made of aluminum were used on the front axle, then in the new Volkswagen Passat they began to be made of steel. But more importantly, the design now provides for the replacement of silent blocks and a ball joint separately from the lever. A weak point in the front suspension is the rear silent block of the lower arm after 50 to 100,000 kilometers. When it wears out, a knock or creak appears. In some cases, the bushings of the front anti-roll bar may also knock. Fortunately, bushings can be picked up from cars of other brands, in particular from the Opel Astra H, and replaced after a series of simple manipulations. The rear axle uses a multi-link suspension which has also undergone some changes. In particular, the upper transverse arm was modified. Through its fault in the B6, the axle geometry was often violated, which caused premature wear of the rear tires. Wheel bearings, usually the front ones, can hum after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. Shock absorbers serve more than 150 to 200,000 kilometers. After 150,000 kilometers, there are problems with the steering rack. And in winter, sometimes the electromechanical power steering fails. The reason lies in the software. When contacting the official service, the malfunction as a rule got rid of the software update. As a last resort, people had to change the steering rack under warranty. In winter, after visiting car washes, door locks often freeze through. In this case, the front doors stop closing, do not slam them, until the car warms up. When you try to open the rear doors, the lock cable may come off. If you know of other model malfunctions, be sure to write about it.